Good morning, Australia. Welcome to the show. One of the best-known voices and one of the finest character voices in the world today is Nancy Cartwright from The Wonderful Simpsons, and of course she plays Bert. It's terrific to have Nancy back with us on the show.
Thank you
Great
so
to see you. I've only met you and Yardley, but you're both quite similar in that, I mean, with all this fame and fortune and The Simpsons, the greatest, cartoon show the world's ever known, television anyway, but you've got your feet in the ground, you enjoy life.
I do. I really do. I've got a couple of kids. I get to travel around and be anonymous. Come over here to Australia and perform and do some shows, and I'm having a good time. Yardley
told us once, actually, I said, how do you in America, even though it's the voice alone, so many people know that it's you, and you've got so many friends, what do you do? And she says, I tell everyone that I'm going away, then I don't go away. So they don't call her at home, because it makes a bit of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to have to make a note on that one.
I was saying to you before coming on air that in reading the book, and this is Nancy's book, and you don't have to be a fan of The Simpsons, although most of us are, the huge majority of us are. It's a great story how a young girl had dreams come true and the people helped her and fame and all the rest of the stuff. But you mentioned Dawes Butler, D-A-W-S, Dawes Butler, who was a man who did a lot of work with Stan Freberg, but was your mentor too.
That's right. Yeah, when I grew up, I didn't have any idea who Dawes Butler was. I grew up with the idea of wanting to meet Mel Blanc. I'd been told that I had an unusual voice and competed in high school doing speeches and changing my voice and telling stories, and a lot of the judges would write on my critique sheet, you should do cartoon voices. So this planted a seed, and long story short, I connected up with this guy, Dawes Butler. I'm saying, who is Dawes? Well, he's Huckleberry Hound, Yogi Bear, Quick Draw McGraw, Elroy Judson. It's like, wow.
All of those things.
Yeah, and he and I connected, and he would send me scripts through the mail. I'd record my voice on tape and mail it back, and he'd critique me, and I realized I gotta move. Yeah. I gotta leave Los Angeles. Excuse me, oh wow, and go to Australia. No, I've got to leave Ohio and go to Hollywood to be with Dawes. And he and his wife took me under their wings and just took care of me and got my feet on the ground.
And of course, Dawes was very well known too as a vocal coach, wasn't he? But he just seemed to go that little bit extra, or quite a deal extra with yourself, because he believed in you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I do believe that it's a bit of a Cinderella story, but when I perform and I do this lecture, because I travel around the world actually and do that, I talk to these kids, and hopefully when they leave, they're inspired by what I say, because it has the appearance that I do have such a Cinderella life, but truthfully, as you know, nobody lives a perfect life, and there are struggles that we all have to go through, obstacles that we have to overcome, and there's certain things that I bring up in my lecture that, not to go into it, but I talk about it in the lecture and say, you guys, here's the idea, make your dream come true. Yeah. Do what it is that you love. You have a passion, you should do it,
Well, so much of that comes out in the book too. We'll talk more in just a few moments' time, but it's great to have you back in Australia. Welcome back with your book. Nancy Cartwright, and we're back with Nancy in a few moments' time. From the Humphreys family, Oscar Humphreys is with us this morning. We look forward to welcoming him. Sarah Foster is going to take us through fashion. Hayley Westenra, beautiful voice, she is going to talk to us and sing for us too. Tonya Todman is going to make some real goodies over there in the kitchen area. And Australia's greatest jockey, Damien Oliver, is a very special guest this morning. In charge of the music, the animated Mr. John Foreman.
Hey!
Good morning to you, John.
How do you do?
What's happening in your world?
Well, Bert, this morning we wanted to ask one of our staff members downstairs to show us in costume and in interpretive dance what it feels like to be a Good Morning Australia segment producer.
Terrifying, eh? And that was the real voice too, by the way. Please thank John and welcome Nancy Cartwright to our show. Nancy, let's take it back to the beginning of The Simpsons. The creator of same was...
Matt Groening. Yeah.
Now, before that, had he had a success, like huge success like The Simpsons?
Oh, sure. He was... Matt was an underground comic who had actually very successful, and still has this very successful comic strip called Life in Hell.
Yep.
And Jim Brooks, who's an executive producer, also the creator of Mary Tyler Moore Show and Taxi, As Good as It Gets, producer and director, he and Matt got together, and the two of them, along with Sam Simon, actually formed this triumvirate that created actually what The Simpsons is today. They took it from the Tracy Ullman Show and developed it into the half hour, and what is this, like, it's really 17 years later.
And you were there from day one?
Yeah, yeah.
How did that come about? Was it a hard gig to get, or did they race after you?
No, I'd like to say 3,000 people auditioned for the part, but I had met the casting director, I think maybe 6 months earlier for another totally another project. It was like an on-camera thing. And when I told her about my background and how I studied with Dawes Butler and I did all these voices and I sat there and did sound effects, I was hoping like she would make me do a scene from Streetcar Named Desire or something, I don't know, something dramatic. But no, she wanted me to do like dripping faucets, and she wanted to hear these sound effects that I do. So she remembered that.
Yeah.
So here she was casting for it, and I was called in for Lisa Simpson, but I didn't want Lisa, I wanted Bart, and I went in and I did Bart, and I was hired on the spot.
Yeah. Well, of course you are Bart now, and it's quite extraordinary, of course, a character as popular as all of those characters in The Simpsons. They've taken on life through the talents, obviously, of the writers and the cartoonists, but also with those voices. And I think that was the first thing about The Simpsons that made it different to anything else that we'd seen before. Is that a fair enough comment?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think the fact that it's primetime television, that it really was something that hadn't been done in years and years.
Big gamble.
Yeah, big gamble from those guys, and nobody knew. And to this day, this is the question that people continue to ask and wonder, did you ever know, did you ever think, that the show was going to be as successful with 20 Emmys and a star on Hollywood Boulevard and countless other awards that we've received for the ecology or whatever it is that we've done, and no, nobody had. I mean, I'm still amazed. They want us to come back and do more. Yeah. And a feature film, I'm sure, is in the works, and it's knock wood, and we're all healthy.
Did you ever think it was going to be as successful as this? I mean, with 20 Emmys and. Am I one of those interviewers who doesn't listen? Have you ever had an interview who doesn't listen to what you're saying and then all of a sudden asks the same question you just answered? No,
you're the best. You're absolutely the best. I love coming on your show. I was here the last time. I had laryngitis.
That's right.
Yeah, but we still had a conversation because you really listened, and I brought a little surprise for you.
Yeah?
I just thought.
Oh, is that for me?
Yes, you bet.
Oh, thank you. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that, because I think with the real life, the merchandising, I reckon he comes up best of all, Bart, because there's just I'm absolutely thrilled.
Now here's a little thing here. I don't think anybody else would get away with doing this, but when Bart says "eat my shorts," now you know it's true.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's lovely. I really appreciate it. Now, of course, you can't do the voice of Bart because of contractual obligations, and I understand that. But you mentioned before about sound effects and so forth. Right. Would you be able to do a couple for us? Would you need a hand mic? Or?
Oh my gosh! Well, I can do Bart actually. I can say things like "eat my shorts," "don't have a cow man." Yeah, absolutely no problem.
Right.
Yeah, and the other characters that I do, it's not a problem. But I get into trouble where it comes along by originating things, because I don't own. It's a funny thing. It's like I own my pharynx and my larynx and my voice box and all that, but I don't really own the voice of Bart Simpson, right? Because of copyright infringement.
Yeah, sure.
So to start utilizing it and using it maybe for my own self.
And merchandising with it.
Absolutely, yeah, it's not okay. So,
want to do an effect?
What's happening, man? So I can do that.
Yeah. What about just an effect of anything? Dripping water or whatever you want to do?
Sure. Oh, yeah, dripping water. This is a good one. This one.
Do you need a hand mic? Just in case?
Sure.
Yep. We got a hand mic? Oh, okay. Won't be a second. Get one from yours. Yeah. Here we go.
A prop.
That's it. Yeah. It doesn't work, but it looks good. Yeah.
Okay, well, this is a good one. This would drive my geography teacher nuts. He'd always be looking around. Where's the water?
That's wonderful.
Yay!
Give us another one.
Okay. This one's actually a visual. This is a pretty good one. I call this one Trap Man in a Barrel. Ritzy! Ritzy! Whitney here!
Beautiful stuff. Nancy, in the book you go through, I'll take that for you just for a second. You go through some of the big stars that come on and play guest roles, and you tell some delightful stories. You discover that Meryl Streep, I mean, you would have been just a little afraid of this big, huge movie star, but you found her the most delightful, and she was nervous.
Yes, she was. It was interesting because you take somebody of Meryl Streep's stature, and same with Kirk Douglas or who else? Mel Gibson. Yeah. And you put them in this arena. It's not exactly where they're really comfortable. And so you go in there, but for me, I'm like, Meryl Streep, wow, I kind of wanted her autograph, and I was an admirer of hers, and she has such a reputation for being so dedicated that she does a lot of research prior to doing any job, as I'm sure you know too.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm thinking, how much research can you do, you know, playing a character on a cartoon show?
Yeah.
But she was amazing, and she really put me in my place with her not knowing it. I was so impressed with her.
What about Mel Gibson?
Oh, Mel! Wow, are you kidding me? Yeah, that was mighty fine working with him. He was so funny. He's he's got this thing about the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
He's got some kind of a connection with them. And at one point in the script, it read "curly laugh." He leans over to me and he whispers in my ear, "What's that mean? What's a curly laugh?" And I looked at him and was like, "Mel," I said, "you know." He's like, "Oh yeah."
Do that for us again. I love it. Oh, I wish you and I were married. We'd have a lot of fun, couldn't we? I'd be in bed with so many characters all at the one time. Halfway through the night, I could say, oh, you know, do Donald Duck for us, if you will. You mentioned before Mel Blanc, who, of course, was renowned as one of the great voices of old time. And I think, actually, did his son follow on in his father's tradition?
He did for a bit.
A little while, yeah.
He did for a bit, yeah. But he's not. I don't think Noel's doing that anymore.
No.
They've got other
And
guys.
Mel did that, of course, for all of the Warner Brothers cartoons and stuff. Did you get to meet him and work with him? You mentioned before you were hoping to meet him.
Sure. I eventually did meet him and work with him. He was, of course, this was later on when his health was not doing so well.
Yeah.
And the story goes, he didn't like carrots. This is an interesting thing because he's the voice of Bugs Bunny. He did not like carrots, and he used to, eat the carrots and then like spit them out, and he had a little spit bucket there because he didn't want to swallow.
Was he a bit hard to get along with, to work with?
I didn't.
Perfectionist?
No, I didn't find it that way at all. I didn't have any trouble working with him.
Now, what about this particular character now that comes up on screen has been pretty large in your life too? Let's have a look here. The Rugrats.
Oh yeah.
How did that come about?
This was, to date, the most challenging job I've ever had, actually, doing Chucky.
Yeah?
Because I didn't create the original voice for him. There was another actress, Chris Cavanaugh, who did Chucky for 9 years. She retired, and they wanted to keep going with the show. So I was brought in, and she was also the voice of Babe in the original movie, Babe the Pig. And I had auditioned for that, and that's why they knew there was a similar placement of our voices, that they knew that I could duplicate a sound that she had.
Yeah.
So I went in and I said, okay, fine, let's try it. But I was hired, and I didn't even really know that I could do it.
Can you do it now? The voice?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Let's see, Chucky.
Angelica, could you please tell them to get rid of the clowns? I don't like the clowns.
Beautiful stuff. Lovely. Thank you. It's been great talking to you again. It's whenever I see The Simpsons, which is quite regularly, I always think that two people behind the voices, yourself and Yardley, it's a special feeling, because as I started out in introducing you today, it's been a huge success for both you girls, but you've worn it well. When you do something as yourself, is it a really different experience when you actually do a performance as an actor, using all the facilities, including how you look and stuff?
Yeah, it was a number of years ago, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I made a decision in my career. I said, you know what, I can keep on working on camera, or else I could put all of my attention in this other area on voiceovers, because that was my original dream. And so I made a decision, and I actually put more attention on voiceover work.
Yeah.
And since then, I've got developed a project for NASCAR.
Yeah.
And if you go to my website, if you go to nancycartwright.com, you can download and see. It's called The Kellys.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's going to happen with it, but we had created this for the internet, and it played on the internet, and it's something that I'm having more fun with developing.
That's voice only, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's animation.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the book. I recommend it to you. As I said before, you don't have to be fully into The Simpsons, but I'm sure so many of you are. But it's a great story. A lot of fun too. A lot of lovely anecdotes about people, some of whom we've mentioned this morning, and also Tom Jones. You went as his guest to see his show, and he was
He was great.
Yeah.
That was so fun working with him. What a cool guy. And then later on, I'd gotten in touch with him, and he invited me to one of his shows in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And he totally surprised me because the lights were, he brought the lights up, and he announced to the audience that the most attention that he ever got getting off an airplane once was when they started, he had done The Simpsons, and then it aired. He stepped off the plane, and they were calling out, "Simpsons, Simpsons," to him. And he was just like, whoa.
Yeah. I heard that story. Actually, they were missing 2 passengers, and they were looking for the Simpsons. It's great to catch up with you again, Nancy. Are you doing some gigs whilst you're here in Australia? I've got the details there, obviously, and I'll give those out very soon. But in the meantime, lovely to see you.
Oh, thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Pleasure. And thank you so much for my butt. I really appreciate that. That'll be on my pillow tonight, I promise you.